as you know, we talked about at the church here. My brother lives in San Diego, and so we were there. My mom was there with him while I was with my kids on vacation, and then she went in the hospital, and these different things happened. And long story short, so we go back out there, have to get her and go through all these different things. And one of the days that we were there, and I'd always wanted to go to Malibu. We were actually visiting my brother last year, and the kids and I were like, oh, let's take a day and go up to Malibu. I've never been up there. I'm not really very familiar with the East Coast, or the West Coast. East Coast I am, West Coast not really. And so I wanted to go up there. I said, let's go drive up there. We had gone previously another time up to Los Angeles and checked it out, and it was okay. I wasn't that impressed with it, but, it was just like a New York City kind of spread out all over the place, and, and the people here are a whole lot nicer there than anyways. They're a little, No, I'm kidding. I'm joking. I'm only kidding, but it was okay. But I wanted to see the coast. I wanted to see Malibu. You hear about, your songs about people talking about, oh, Malibu. I'm like, oh, let's go see this. And so we made it a point. So while we were there, Angela, my sister-in-law, stayed with my mom and everything, and so look, you guys go on up, and so on a Saturday, we drove up to Malibu, and it's like 2.5 hour drive or so from San Diego, depending on traffic, that could be 2.5, that could be 4 hours or whatever, but anyways, and so we get up there, and at first we get there in the beginning parts, I'm not that impressed by it. I'm like, it's okay, it's just, it's like crowded, and there's nowhere to park, and there's people, there's cars everywhere, and I'm thinking, well, it is a Saturday, and that's like the Jersey Shore on a Saturday. It's not much different, and it's actually really, I didn't realize how big it was. I thought Malibu was like this beach, but it's not. It's actually pretty spread out. So we were heading to a state park called El Matador, which was a little bit further up from the area that we were at, still part of, I guess, Malibu. And so after we got past all the crowds and all the people and all the things like that, it kind of got further north up, and it was very beautiful. I mean, it is an amazing coast. I have to say the West Coast, as far as just the beauty of the coast, is quite incredible. And so we get to this park, and I'm like, wow, this is so cool. So we were about to leave, and we waited till sunset, and so then I want to take some pictures, that after sunset, I forget what they call it, twilight is like, 3 degrees of after sunset or something like that, where the sky begins to change and stuff, and so we did. So I took this picture, and it was just kind of a cool picture. It was one of those ones, and listen, I'm not a great photographer, but one day I will take a class to learn how to actually get off of auto. So, but I think they're pretty decent. And doesn't show up the best here, but anyways. So I take this picture. It was just great. The sun was setting. The surf just came in right. This bird, just out of nowhere, God just sent this bird to walk right in front of me. I'm like, yes, click. It's like everything was perfect. And it's all proportion because, I had those proportion issues. I was like balancing out, like my issues. So the bird needed to balance out the mountains on the right side to have the bird on the left side, So there's all these different, to keep the picture balanced and stuff like that in my head. And so everything was perfect. And a couple of people have said to me, Pastor, man, that was such a serene picture that you posted and so like that. It just looked so peaceful and so nice. It's like, wow, it was just so beautiful. The bird, the surf, the sunset. I'm like, yeah, it was beautiful. I said, yeah, it really was. But in my head, I'm thinking, but you don't know what was going on around me. You got Mermaid Lady over here on the left. She has a lady dressed in a mermaid costume that's under a big rock. And someone taking pictures of her as the water's coming up and she's flipping her tail, And then you have the other lady that's dressed in what looks like a wedding gown. She didn't have the veil, but like a wedding gown with sequins all over it. And she's sitting on a rock like Marilyn Monroe, just kind of all sprawled out until a wave came and crashed over top of her right before. And her beautiful hair just went all over the place. You got the couple two couples actually, not right together, but separate time, that just proposed to each other. The guy proposed to her, and it was great. Everybody's like, oh, clapping. It's so great. I got a drone flying over my head. There's people off to the right. There's families. There's kids running around and screaming, and all kind of things are going on. And then a whole wedding party shows up, and I don't know why they had tiki torches. I don't know why they had tiki torches with the photographer. They're taking pictures. That's all happening on. See, but all you see is a bird and a beautiful sunset and the surf coming in. But 2 feet to the right is chaos. 2 feet to the left is chaos. And this picture doesn't even show all the chaos. Most of it had started to go away. And I said, let me take another picture. And Mermaid Lady was hanging out somewhere over there. That was the rock, the lady, anyways, whatever. I had to be very creative to take that picture. I had to focus in and zoom everything around me, all the chaos, the drone, the mermaid lady, the lady in the wedding dress that just got doused with water, everything around. I'm having to push all of that out to zero in on this little piece of peacefulness and serenity. Life is kind of like that, isn't it? Surrounded by chaos so many times. That's the thing about it. You go onto like most social media, platforms and things like that. You get a snippet of someone's life. You get the perfect. It's been tweaked. The lighting is perfect. The angles are perfect. You didn't realize that took like 258 pictures to get that one perfected shot. Okay, and so it's so. We look at that sometimes and we think, oh, wow, they're so perfect. Everything's so great in their life. But what you don't see is the chaos around it. So you gotta remember that there's all that's around, the peace and serenity that is surrounded by the chaos, which is so true to life, pulled here, pulled there, tested here, all the things flying around in your life. You're going to always have those things. They're there. But how do we experience the focus? How do we experience peace in the chaos of our life? Because it really is the case. We read scriptures about the Bible that talks about, God's perfect peace that surpasses all understanding, and you walk into your home and you're like, everything's crazy. It's a mess. The dog just tore something up. The bird's going crazy. The cat just vomited up fur balls all on the floor, and the kids are running around, and one kid's got like boogers hanging out his nose, and and they're 23. No, I'm kidding. No, I'm just joking on that one. Don't tell my kids that. Anyways, and so all these things are running around. I mean, just chaos, and the phone's ringing. And it's all telemarketers trying to get you to buy something, and it's like you're trying to pay bills, you're trying to do this, and your schedule, and being pulled here, and you got a work thing, and you got a home thing, you got a health thing, you got a doctor thing, you got a this thing, and all these things, and you sit back and say, peace? Are you kidding me? Peace? But see, those things don't change the fact that God still wants to give us peace in the midst of the chaos. It's like that picture. If you go back to that again, if you would. That picture, in the midst of the chaos, in the midst of all that's going on around us, that God promises this peace that surpasses all understanding. This peace that brings a calm in our life. In fact, John 16, verse 33 says this, "And everything I've taught you is so that the peace which is in me will be in you." Let's stop there just for a second. Jesus said, all the peace that I've talked about, all that I've taught you up to this point, and you think about, you have the book, you have the Bible, that you have all the words right there. They didn't have it printed form. They didn't have it in multiple languages. They didn't have it in multiple versions. They didn't have it in multiple font sizes. They didn't have it on their phones, so they didn't have phones back then. And Jesus is saying to them, all the things that you've heard me say, all that you've heard me teach you, is so that the peace that's in me will be in you. How much more of an advantage do we have today to have peace? It wasn't so, well, Pastor, that they were way back then. Their life was just a lot less stressful. No, they were actually being hunted down. They were being persecuted. The only thing hunting you down is the guy to get you to pay your visa bill, okay? Well, not you guys, but people that you know. Amen. Or something like that. And so anyways, he says, everything I've taught you is so that the peace which is in me will be in you. That's the goal. That is the goal that Jesus has, that his peace is your peace and will give you great confidence as you rest in me. For in this unbelieving world, you will experience trouble and sorrow. He says, there's going to be chaos. There's going to be chaos all around you. But in the midst of all this chaos, there is a place that you can focus on, that you can cut everything else out and look at and say, this peace is the peace that's going to give me the strength to deal with all of this chaos around me. He goes on to say, he goes, but you must be courageous, for I have conquered the world. What's your chaos? Is it your marriage? Is it one of your kids? Is it a health thing? Some of you laughed on that one. Is it a job thing? Is it trying to just pay your bills? Is it a loss that you've gone through? What's the chaos? Listen, we all have it. I really don't care who you are. I mean, I was looking at some of the statistics we have a lot of kids that went back, have gone to college, first time, my son, first year college, and a bunch of others that went back were first years also, and the anxiety and the stress is rampant upon our college campuses. When you hear the statistics of kids that commit suicide in college, I mean, and it's not, some of them it's not the kids that, it's like, you're like, why? They had everything they needed, great grades, finances and family, everything was together. Why would they see that it was so much that they felt that they had to take their life? See, everybody deals with chaos, with the peacelessness around it. But it's what we do. So how in the midst of that, how do we find the peace that Jesus promises in the midst of the storm to be part of our life? How do we bring that into our life? How do we make that a part of who we are? What do we do to get that peace in the midst of the chaos of our life? So today and next Sunday, I thought I was going to finish it all the first service. I didn't, so it's going to be, we'll talk about this next week to really get into it. But let's look at this. Philippians chapter 4, verse 6 through 9. It says this. Philippians 4, 6 through 9. Don't be pulled in different directions or worried about a thing. Man, there's so many things that pull for our attention, pull for your affection, that are pulls to the right, pulls to the left, trying to get your emotions and your past. I mean, think about this. We talked a lot about your past. Your past is always pulling you to come back to a past pain, a past hurt, a past offense, a past issue. You got other things that you don't know, the unexpected things in your life, the uncertain things in your life that are pulling in the same direction. And so he says, don't be pulled in different directions or worried about a thing. So what is he saying? When you look at that part right there, what does that mean? What it means is it's talking about focus, that you literally have to take and focus your attention on the direction that you're going. Paul said it this way. He says, I am determined to lay hold of that for which Christ Jesus laid hold of me. That was his purpose. He says that whatever God has called me to do, whatever Jesus is appointing me to do, I am determined to lay hold of that. He says at another time, I press toward the mark. I got a mark. This is where I'm running. And there was all kind of things that were working to pull him to the left and pull him to the right. And we think about this, the Apostle Paul. Now you look at him and say, well, wow, the Apostle Paul, man, what a great, it must have been. Listen, he wasn't a big hero back then. During his time, there were people that were trying to undo everything he was doing. He seemed like a radical to many different people. And he comes in and, because then it was just thought in the beginning that this was just for the Jewish population, that Jesus was just for the Jewish people. And God's trying to get them to go beyond that and say, no, it's not just for you, but this is for the whole world. It's not just your plan. This is for the whole world. And so God begins to work, and then Paul comes out, no, this is not just for the Jew, but for the Gentile as well. Gentile being everybody else that's not Jewish. That Jesus came for everybody. And that wasn't in the beginning just received so readily all of a sudden. There were those that were just like, no, Paul, no. Paul wasn't this big, huge loved figure necessarily in the beginning. And then there was those that just didn't trust him because of his past. Because he was out trying to kill all the Christians. And here all of a sudden he's coming in trying to establish churches. And we look at Paul now, we're like, wow, Paul, great man of faith, wrote all these things. And we built our life on and growing those things. No, it was a little different. And so we go back and Paul comes in and he says, no, I'm pressing toward the mark. Why? Because I got all these things that are trying to pull me down. He talked about the fact, and he says, my spirit is weak. My spirit is, in other words, my spirit's strong, but my flesh is weak. There's this battle going on. I know what God wants me to do, but I'm constantly having to battle these other things that would try to take and distract me in my life. It's no different than us today. We've got the same way that you take a magnifying glass and you can look into something, you can see it, it makes it bigger, it magnifies it. I told you this story like a few months back, about how that, as a kid, I wasn't like trying to burn things down, but when I learned that you could take a magnifying glass and you could take like a dry leaf, and in the sunny day, you could actually burn holes into the leaf. Don't try this at home, I'm just simply saying. And then, we came back from visiting our family in South Carolina. I was about probably like 12, 13, something like that at this time. And we come back home, and we down there, you could legally buy fireworks. And so I had a bunch of firecrackers. I honestly don't know how I got them back home, but I had like a fresh pack that hadn't been opened. And I guess there had to be like 200, 250, whatever in it. And if you don't know anything about fireworks and firecrackers, that they're all woven together like on a fuse. So you have a main fuse, and you're supposed to unwind them, and so that you can use one at a time or something like that. Well, this was when you laid it all out, it was about this long. So there was a lot of them there, because it was like doubled over, like tripled over, whatever it was laid out. But when you opened it up, it was pretty big, and it had one fuse at the end. And I was just like, I guess I was outside thinking. It's like, those firecrackers that I brought back home from down south, what if I wonder if it could actually light the fuse? Stupid 12-year-old. Maybe not so stupid. Maybe there was a part of me that was like, yeah, I really want to see what happens, I don't know. I don't remember that part. But anyways, I go out there and I just kind of took the magnifying glass and just kind of held it over, and it was like, I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Let's see what happens. And I zeroed, and what it does is that beam, it just becomes a little dot, but it's full of the sun's power. And man, in 2 seconds, less than like a split second, that fuse lit up and started sparking. And all of a sudden, it's like, because it's not super long, it's a little bit long, but all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, it lit up, and there's no way to stop it, and I just took off running, and man, it's blowing things up, and this firecrackers flying through the air, and they're blowing up all over the place. My mom thinks that we're being attacked. She doesn't know what's going on. She's like, and she, when moms always call you by your full name, it's like, Frederick, what did you do? And I'm like, and then papers flying all. It was a huge mess. I mean, it was just all over the place. The power of focus is quite astonishing. Don't do that. But when we focus our life, cropping out the chaos, changing what we're focusing on. Changing what you're focusing is not ignoring the things that you have to do. It's not ignoring the health challenges. It's not ignoring your finances. It's not ignoring all the other stuff you deal with. It's just understanding that if I can focus, why is Paul saying I'm pressing toward the mark? Because there's power in focus. There's power in purpose. That when you understand where you're going, you're able to eliminate the things that are distracting you, so that you have clarity to deal with the things that you have to deal with. And so many times our life is filled with so many things that are pulling us to the left and the right that have absolutely no bearing on where we're going in our life, or our marriage, or our friendships, or our family, our relationship with God, but they're just distractions. There's things that are keeping you, that are like a wheel spinning in mud. You just can't get out of it. It's the focus. There's days that, I know myself, that I make it a point just to focus my mind, and how I do it many times, and is not only, well, Pastor, praying, yes, but for me, a lot of it is worship music. I'll use my phone. That's like companies like Spotify. You can, load whatever you want, and different music, and I like all different kind of genres of music, but I'll have specific worship things that I'll put on, I'll go to sleep with, or in the car, I'll turn it on, and it'll just transfer when I go from in the house with the phone, it'll switch over to the car and play in there, and I'm a big Elevation worship fan. Like most of their stuff is really, really good. I really like it. I listen to it a lot, and usually put it on at night, and it's playing in the house at night, and so they just came out with a brand new album just the other day called At Midnight. And there's a song on there. If you haven't got it, you need to go back and listen to it. It's called With You. And man, I've listened, like literally yesterday, I must have listened to it over 6 times yesterday, probably more than that. I was listening in the house. I got in the car, plugged it in, played it, kept going back and forth over it. It was one of those things I just needed to hear it over and over. And some of the lyrics to it, it's a beautiful song. And a part of the song, it says this: I didn't need to worry about tomorrow. No need to focus on the things I can't control. So many times our focus is on things that we can't control. You need to know, There's no way I can control. I can't control how that person is. I can't control, they don't like me. I can't control that. You know, I had to learn a long time ago as a pastor, the moment that you step out, I don't care what it is that you step out, you know, whatever you step up in a position where you're kind of leading in anything, whether in any kind of job or family situation, or even if you're planning the family reunion, all of a sudden you become the target for every problem. It's your fault, okay? Anytime you step out to lead in any area, all of a sudden you are a target. And I had to learn that, you know what, people aren't going to like you. I had to, as much as I like people to like me. You know, I think I'm a likable person. I have some weird quirks, yes, I agree. But it really rattles me when people don't like me. But you know what, in my life, I have some people that really, really, really don't like me. Still don't know why. And it used to really drive me crazy. Until one day I realized, you know what, I can't fix them. I can't, that sounds bad. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean it that way. I can't make them like me, right? You know, it's just it. What am I supposed to do? I can't change that. And so for me, worrying about that, and literally, I would be a knot in my stomach. It was like that agita, like right inside, you know. There's no Tums or peppermint tea or anything. There's nothing, you know, could take that away. And I would just get, why, you know, what's their problem? I'm a nice person. Why do they hate me so much? Why are they lying about me? Why are they saying that garbage? I found myself running around trying to fix those things. So someone said to me, you know what? It says it's like in the Song of Solomon. It's the little foxes that destroy the vine. They come and nibble away at your life. I'm off track. I didn't talk about this first service. So this is for reason I'm saying this. What I find is when that happens, there's someone here that needs to hear this. Because this is not my notes. This is not what I was talking about. I'm way off track and I'm running out of time and I got to get moving. But there's somebody here today that maybe that's what you're dealing with. That you're just that it's becoming an abscess in your spirit, in your heart, because you're worried about somebody not liking you or talking about you. So you got to give that thing to God and stop worrying. I mean, just don't worry about it. Forget it. Forget them. Forget the situation. I'm not saying that, Pastor, that's not very Christian. Listen, wasn't it Jesus that told the disciples when you go into a town and they don't receive you, that when you come out, wipe the dirt off the bottom of your feet? I'm not calling dirt. I'm just saying the remembrance of it, the issue. Let go. Go on. You do not let that derail you from what God is doing in your life for the purpose of where you're going. So the song. So I went back, I was listening to it over and over again. It goes in and says, all my attention on the wonder of this moment. Jesus, your comfort is the comfort of my soul. See, we've got to come back to the focus of the fact that people aren't necessarily going to be standing in line to applaud you and tell you how great everything is. Well, we're Christians. Listen, this is where you have to put your big boy pants on, big girl pants on, and say, you know what? I've got to understand that life is chaotic for everybody. And sometimes we hold people to a higher expectation than we could actually achieve ourselves. Sometimes we got to realize that, you know what? Do I have even the extra time to do what I'm expecting this person to do? Call me, check on me, and do all these things? Maybe you do, but the majority of people, I don't know about you. I always have a leftover list from 3 days ago. Now listen, we need to try. We need to reach out to people. And when we're in relationship with people, we need to do that as best as possible. But sometimes we allow the enemy, and I'm like way off what I'm talking about, but it still fits in. We'll get there in a minute. But I just really feel that there's some people struggling with that. And if that's you this morning, and know this, your comfort's got to come from God. See, that's your focus. So I tried that. No, it's not try. It's a lifestyle. And see, it's His peace in the midst of the comfort. And sometimes you've got to, like for me, I'll get alone in my car and I'll just play stuff over and over again. Get it inside my heart. Get God's word inside there. And sometimes it's a message that I'm listening to, a teaching message, or sometimes it's worship music, and I'll put it on at night, and I want to get that. I want to feed my spirit. Because sometimes your flesh is so sucked dry of energy and sleep and worry and all the things. But your spirit needs to be alive, because if your spirit is lacking, you're really going to be in trouble. And I got to feed my spirit. I got to get God's word on the inside. I got to get that worship, begin to change. See, it's about changing my focus. That picture that I did, I had to crop out a lot of chaos to get that moment. And it wasn't ignoring it, it was there. But it's like this in our life. You've got to crop out, keep the focus, because that will give you what you need to be able to deal with the things around you. But this is what it is. Now look at this. If this is my focus, I'm going in this direction, and I'm so busy looking over here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here, but not here, I'm missing the mark. Paul was very specific. I press toward the mark. In the midst of all the distractions, I'm pressing toward the mark, the purpose, the focus, what God's doing in my life. It's all about the focus. Focus on God instead of your situation. And that's not easy to do. That's easier said than done. I totally get it. Trust me. I've been there. I know that. Peace is not the absence of trouble. We need to know this. Peace is not the absence of trouble. Because many times we think, well, I'm going to get peace in the midst of this. It's not about everything being clear. It's not about everything being quiet. It's not everything being... Think about this. I have friends that live next to an airport. You know what? They don't even hear the airplanes anymore. They did in the beginning. In fact, we rented an Airbnb when we went to go visit my brother, we had a budget. It was a pretty tight budget to do this, because there's a lot of some of these unexpected things that we're doing. And so it was I was talking to Pastor Chris. He said, this is like in between. I called him early in the trip, and he's like, hey, how's it going? I said, you know what? I've realized that I need to find out who the photographer for this Airbnb is. We need to hire them. It's starting to slowly sleep in. For those of you who wonder what I'm talking about, the pictures were incredible. When you walked in, I was like, let me look at those pictures again, because this ain't what it looks like. This is looking totally not what I see in this picture right now. It's all the same furniture, but it looks a little bit, they must have made pictures of this brand new, because it ain't brand new right now. I was like, okay, as long as there's no bed bugs, fleas, or other rodents running around, we're good. And so we checked all that out, but wow, far cry from what the picture was. But it was in the budget, and you get what you pay for. So there we were. Anyways, a little over $100 a night. It was 2 blocks from the beach. I'm thinking, wow, what a great deal. Not quite as great a deal as I thought it was, But anyways, yeah. It was interesting, but praise God, we survived. Hallelujah. But there was one thing they forgot. They did tell us. They wanted us. There's a train. That part of California, they have a train line that goes right down. It's the coaster, I think it's called, and a couple of things. And I wish I had uploaded this, because it's quite interesting. So they told us about this. So 5 o'clock in the morning, the train comes by. The building we're staying in is right next to the train tracks. And they did say that there's a train that goes by, and the horn is loud. I'm thinking, there's trains right down here. I hear trains all the time. No big deal. It's okay. Well, we're okay. Open the window up. There's no air conditioning, because you don't really need it there. In San Diego, it's great. You don't really need the air conditioning where there was. Oh, and the breeze is blowing. It's just so nice. And you're laying in bed at 5 o'clock in the morning. It's still dark. And all of a sudden you hear, whack! Because we're right at the crossing. Whack! And you're like, jump up like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Air raid. It sounded like an air raid. Are there bombs coming down? Like, I wasn't even alive during those times in World War II, but man, it sounds like what they must have sounded like. It's the train. And it happens like every 30 minutes after that till midnight. That's another reason why it was $100 a night, okay? So. But the funny thing was, that gets to my point, the funny thing was, by the time that we left, those 5 days, I think it was, we were whatever, I didn't even hear the train the next night. It kept blasting through, but you didn't even hear it anymore. And I'm thinking, how did I not, and I asked my kids, I said, did the train go through? They're like, oh yeah, it went through. I'm like, I didn't even hear it. And I usually hear everything. See, peace is not the absence of trouble. It's merely it's not getting rid of all your enemies. It's not overcoming all your challenges. It's not paying off all your bills. No, it's there can be trouble, conflict, and challenge all around you on the outside, but real peace is trusting God enough to not allow the chaos on the inside of your life. That you can tune it out in the midst of it. It's about focus. Let me just finish this. In verse 6 of Philippians 4, it says, don't be pulled in different directions or worried about a thing. Be saturated in prayer throughout the day, offering your faith-filled requests before God with overflowing gratitude. Tell him every detail of your life. You know what? I don't know about you, but would you tell a stranger all the details of your life? Would you tell someone that you hardly talk to all the details of your life? No. Because to do that, it's got to be somebody that you trust. Because there's some people that, you could tell me anything. And the moment that you walk away, I'm going to tell everybody else that I know. Right? But when that relationship has been proven, you know that you can trust this person. You know that you can rely on them. You know that you can bare your soul and they won't look at you any different. They won't judge you. That they will stand with you because there's trust. What he's saying here, what Jesus is saying here, what Paul is saying here is the fact is that the reason we can do that is because we trust God. We just spent 3 weeks talking in a series, Pastor Chris did, on being known. Knowing God and you being known as to how God knows you and this radical grace that God gives us. He talked about 3 weeks talking about you need to know who Jesus is because when you do, you understand that if I tell him, it's not that I'm just speaking out to the air, but literally he is alive. He is there to hear, to know, to move and open doors of opportunity and work in your life and bring you a peace that you can't even know. But you can go all your life saying that, I'm a Christian. Oh, yeah, I know God. Yeah, I know Jesus, but you don't really know him. There's people, if you've lived in where you live for a long time, there's probably people that you know because you passed them, but you don't really know them. They may live next door to you. They may live across the street. They may live in the apartment next door. You pass them all the time, but you know what the reality is? You're like, hey, how's it going? Oh, nice weather. Yeah, that's just, what is that? That's nothing. How's the weather? Oh, beautiful weather. That's just when you don't know else what to say and you're biding time to get away from them. Come on. It's rude to say hi, bye, so you got to throw the weather in there. Right? Because that's an easy out. Yeah. Oh, I better run now before it rains. Whatever. So you just kind of go through that. It's talking about trust. Man, I'm so out of time here, but I got to tell you a story. I'll make it as quick as I can. Growing up, I had several times when I was really younger, I'm talking like under 10, being at, we didn't grow up around pools and stuff that much, so I never learned how to swim. But I remember being young a couple times with other kids, and I got thrown into the pool. And if you don't know how to swim and get thrown into the deep end, man, it's scary. Once was in a lake in Canada, in like the deeper part of the lake. Another part was a pond, I should say, but it was pretty deep. The other other 2 times were like in a pool, and man, I swallowed water, and I'm choking, and it's up my nose and down my throat, my lungs, all of it, and it petrified me. So it created this fear of the water, like literally to the point, and I'm talking about even up to as an adult, that I wouldn't go in water that would be like mid-chest. The moment that it hit like here, man, I'm just like, my breathing increases, it's heavy, and God forbid it came up this high, I'm just like, and it was panic, like a little panic starts setting in, because I just didn't want it, and God forbid, I would never go up to my chin. Are you kidding me? You crazy? No. Like, absolutely not. The beach, rough, would never walk. Waves, I don't want to do that. God forbid I get knocked over and rolled, and it's happened one time. I was like, I'm not an idiot. I learned quick. I'm not going back out there to do that. And so this was probably about 15 years ago, I guess, I believe, somewhere in that ballpark, give or take. And one of the ladies that was part of our church for many, many years, Sylvia Byfield, she, if you know Althea Llewellyn's her mom. She's head of our nursery. So I've known Sylvia for a long, long, long time, and she's Jamaican. She grew up on an island and never learned how to swim, which is not that uncommon for people who've grown up on an island. But I just never could figure out whether you live on an island. Well, they do have land on islands, so you don't have to swim, And she said, here she was just right before retirement age, and she's one of these go-getting. She's like super fit. She exercises all the time, and she's always doing a new adventure or something. And she says, you know what? And I remember her telling me one day, I said, how you doing? And she goes, good, because we actually went to the same YMCA, and I saw her, and I was like, what are you doing? She goes, I'm taking swim classes. She goes, I've always wanted to know how to swim, and you know what? I decided I need to learn how to swim. And so she did, and she was swimming. And I was like, wow. And I thought, you know what? If Sylvia can do this, I can do this. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to do it. So I signed up for the class, and it took me a little while because the Mommy and Me class for the little babies was right after this class, which meant they were all going to be sitting there watching me learn how to swim, Mr. Panic over here of the water. So I finally do it. And I get in there, and I'm in the water, and they want to get you familiar. I'm trying to rush this story, but trying to get familiar with the water the whole bit. They want you to go down, and I'm like, okay, go down to here. Here, that's it. That's all we're doing. They're like, go down. I'm like, yep, right here. This is what we're doing, right here. So they're working on me, trying to get me in the water, and finally they do, and they're like, okay, and they give me these tubes, and like, just hold here, it'll hold you. I'm like, no, you don't understand. I sink. I don't float. I sink. They're like, you float. And I'm like, you're not floating because you're panicking and you're probably kicking and whatever. You will float. Guaranteed, you will not go in. I'm like, okay. So they finally put this tube. I got this, and I'm like a duck. I'm like, my head's as high. And they're looking at it. They're like, you look like a duck. You're like, you got to put your head lower. I'm like, no. And then it's like, you got to put your face in the water. I'm like, okay. In the water. As I'm kicking and I'm going along. And they're like, you've got to trust me. The instructor was like, trust me, I'm here, you're not going to drown. And remember, just when they had me start to learn to kick to get into the deep end, I was fine as long as I knew I could touch, and I could touch the side, and I could touch the bottom. Now, all of a sudden, I'm like over my head. It's like 6 feet, then drops down to whatever it is, it goes really deep. And the whole time, like my breathing, my pulse, everything is, I'm just racing to get to the other side and grab the side. And then turn around. I'm like literally, I'm in like my 40s, and I am like a little kid. And all the little kids are sitting there watching me with the mom or dads or caregiver, all there watching me, probably thinking, what's wrong with this guy? It's like, Anyways, the point of the story was this. I did learn how to swim. I learned to get my face in the water. I was able to jump off in the deep end numerous times. I can swim today. But while I was saying it, it took me trusting the instructor that I was going to be okay. And it was years of, like 40 plus years of fear having to move back. But that happened in the midst of the fear. I had to focus my trust on this, on the lady that was my instructor, my teacher, knowing that if I'm in trouble, she's going to be there. And she was. Because there was a time that I did need it, and they were right there, right? She said, we have you. You're good. You're fine. Don't panic. See, that's what he's talking about. Trust equals peace. The more I trust him, the more peace I can have in the midst of the fear and the struggles of the life that I go through. Let me just finish reading this. It says in verse 7, then God's wonderful peace that transcends human understanding will make the answers known to you through Jesus Christ. So keep your thoughts continually fixed on all that is authentic and real and honorable and admirable, beautiful, respectful, pure and holy, merciful and kind. In other words, fix, what he's saying, focus. Pull out your spiritual magnifying glass and look for those things. Focus on those things. But this is happening. That's okay. This is what I'm focusing on. But we're focused on this. Come back to this. Fasten your thoughts on every glorious work of God, praising him always. And then verse 9, follow the example of all that we have imparted to you, and the God of peace will be with you in all things. It's the focus. Focus creates trust. In life, there's going to be times where it seems like everything's out of control. challenges, stress, anxiety, adversity, all that stuff. And I can have chaos around me, but I've got to make a check as to what is my focus. Focus, my trust in God, so that chaos is not ruling me. Because when we lose our focus, chaos rules. I figure I'm already late. Might as well tell you one last story and then I'll let you go. Okay. I got to catch you up with the first service. I don't know how I fit all this in the first service. I was away with my kids again, and we're at this hotel, and they had a pool, and they had I've always loved saltwater fish. I had them at one time before we got married, and then I had to choose between the saltwater fish and my wife because I couldn't afford both, so the fish went, and I kept the wife, okay? So, because it's, expensive. So, fish had to go. But I've always loved that, and so I've learned to snorkel. I can do that, but it's really far away sometimes, and I don't like going down under. I'm still dealing with a little bit of that. The lower you go, the more that. So they have a sign at the pool, and they're like, free scuba lesson in the pool. You're in the pool. I'm like, okay, it's not the ocean, it's in the pool. And I've really always wanted to do this. And so Brittany's like, Dad, what do you think? I'm like, no. And then I was like thinking about it. I was like, you know what? Yes, let's do this. So Andrew was the smart one. He chose not to do it, so he kind of sat sat at the pool. And so here we are there, and there's a family there, and there's a gentleman there, and they have 4 kids, and me and Brittany. And so they were all lined up, and the instructor gets out, and he's like some super, like, master diver. He's like 27 years old. He's like been around the world. He's like a pretty well-known photographer, underwater photographer, and blah, 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 yada, whatever, okay. So he's really good at what he does, okay, and he really was. And so I'm thinking, this is going to be easy. Just put a mask on, you got the air tank, yeah, you got this, we got this. And he's like, no, there's like all these lists. And does anybody here scuba dive? Okay, so some of you do. So there's a whole list of things you have to know, not just to do it, but also in case something goes wrong, because the thing is, if it goes wrong and you're like really deep, that's a problem because it's going to take you too long to get up there, to get to the air. I'm not thinking about that. I'm like, I just need the mask and the air, and we got this thing. And he's like, no, so you have to go through all these things. And he's going through all these checks. I've got it, checked it. Then he comes to the point, he says, now in case you're underwater really deep and your mask fills up with water, what do? I'm like, close your eyes and just go up. I don't know what you do because that's what I would do, close my eyes and go up because I hate salt water in my eyes. He's like, no. You have to be able to know how to flush the water out, all this kind of story. So real quickly. So he says, so this is what we're going to do. And so he shows me, he says, we're going to go underwater, and you're going to take your mask, and you're going to open it up, and you're going to fill it with water, put it back on, and then you're going to open your eyes, and you're going to do this and this and this to flush the water out of it so that you can see again. And I was like, no, ain't doing that. My fear is starting to rise again. Now, so you have to think, so fear in the midst of chaos. My pulse is rising. Everything's, I can feel it. My heart's pounding. Like, I don't want to do this. We're going around. Everybody's underwater now. Here we are. All the tank, everything. We're all down underneath in the pool. We're in a pool. It's like little kids playing volleyball right there. It's like 4 feet deep where we're at, if that. We're laying on the bottom. And he comes to me. He's pointing, because you can't talk underwater, and he's all sign language signals that he's using. He says, okay, you. And he looks at me, and he's like, and I was like, and he's like, he's pointing me to open my mask. And I was like, no. And he goes, yes, you. I open it, and it was like every one of those fears that I had way back 15 years ago came rushing in that moment as that water poured into my mask, and I sucked in all this water, and it went up my nose and was in my lungs. I get up, and I'm like coughing and choking in the middle of a pool. And like literally the water's only up to here, and I'm like coughing and gagging. And he says, it's okay. We got this. Went through it several times. I did it like 3 or 4 times, same thing. And he says, listen, he comes to me, and he was actually really good. He goes, I got you. He says, and we go underneath, and same thing. He comes up, literally, we're like mask to mask virtually. I'm thinking, buddy, my eyes are changing. You got to get back a little bit because I can't see you. I need a little distance right now, a little arm length at least, so I can see you. And he's like, okay. And and I'm looking around. He grabs my attention. He says, focus here. Grab your mask. Open it. And I did it. And for a second, everything was fine. Then all of a sudden, that fear and just chaos. Everything came. It was like claustrophobic, just coming in. Just grabbed me, and I shot to the top. I'm choking, and I said, I can't do this. And he says, I really believe you can. He says, you know what, tomorrow morning, we're going to go out in the ocean. It's right there. We'll go in the ocean. We'll go in shallow water. I'll work with you right there. And we're going to try this. I'm not going to put you in any danger. He says, so he took me and Brittany out. I get out there, we're walking, man, it's heavy, all this stuff. And I'm getting in the water, and man, the anxiety is just escalating. I'm panicking inside. I'm smiling on the outside. We get in the water. I can't even keep up. He's like trying to get us to go down. I start to go down. I can't do it. And I'm just choking in the ocean now. And I'm like, finally, I was like, I'm done. I get out. Now, you probably thought I was going to say I did it. I didn't do it. I'm still determined to do it one day. See, when we lose focus, chaos comes in. I couldn't get past that in the midst of that situation. That's why I don't want to tell you that, because it's like you got to keep the focus. He literally was grabbing me and saying, look at me. He's focusing me. You got to be focused. If not, man, the enemy's going to win. He's going to distract you. Next week, I got to close. I'm way over my time, but next week we're going to break down this word trust. I have an acronym for this that breaks down how do we begin to put this in our life to build this trust so that we can not panic, not allow that to begin to overwhelm us, but we build and strengthen ourselves to stay focused even in the midst of the fears in our life and the distractions and things. Would you stand with me? Let me pray with you. Father, I thank you today for the opportunity for your word to move in our life. And Father, I thank you, Lord, just let us, even as this week, begin to bring our focus to you in all that we do. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.